Highsmith,
Present.
Director Byers, Director Faulkner,
Present.
Director Hudson. Here. Director Mueller,
Here.
Vice President Patrick. Here. And President Cuneo.
Here. Okay, I see no public comments. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the proposed tax rate of $1.0379 with an estimated valuation of $29,441,928? That's just information.
Yeah.
All right. Any other? All right, someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. All right, let's call to order for our business meeting. Call that. Here.
Director Byers,
Here.
Director Hudson. Here.
Here.
Vice President Patrick. Here. And President Cuneo.
Okay, pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Okay, before we start today, I would propose that we have a moment of silence for the individuals who were injured, for the individuals who were killed in the massacre in Texas today. Just have a moment of silence first. All right. Thank you. We have a forum. Recognitions. We have the SDN grants and scholarships.
Board, President Cuneo, Dr. Keenan. I'm Jennifer Henry, the Executive Director of Communications, and tonight I would like to introduce Hermine Walker and Lauren Witherby from SDNEA to present the teacher mini grants and student scholarships. As the recipients are called, we'll ask you to stay up here so that we can get a group photo, and then at the conclusion, we invite you to participate in the refreshments that we have located in the superintendent's area.
Good evening, all. I am Pearline Walker Fairley, the first Vice President for Special District National Education Association, and
I am Lindsay Weatherby. I am a member of NEA.
anyway, we are on the committee that looked at all the applicants, tough decisions to be made. Not enough funding, but every year we do award scholarships, student scholarships, and teacher mini grants to students and staff of special schools. I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. So I'm going to give the teacher mini grants. If they're here, please come forward. Deanna Ash, Laura Benson, Victoria Sika. Thank you.
You're gonna stop. Thank you.
Sarah Nervin, Lindsay Parker, Patricia Sherman, Slavic, Melanie Summers, and Deanna Rice Kaufman.
Board, if I could have you stand. I have you ankle in. Perfect, you guys are pros. Okay, Dr. Cuneo, can I have you slide over just a little bit?
Sure.
Should we wait for Dr. Asner?
Yeah, he will.
Ms. Hudson, can I have you? Yeah, perfect, there we go. Dr. Myers, you're perfect, right where you are. Yep. Okay. 2 pictures. One more. Okay, one more. Thank you. Congratulations. I'm going to present the students with their scholarships, and again, all of the students who did apply, they really blew us away. We wish that more. Paige Campbell. Miles Grant. Maddie Lita. Ladies, have you scoot down? Can I have you two ladies swap places? Perfect. All right, 2 pictures. One more. Thank you. Congratulations. Invite the scholarships and grant winners to join us out.
All righty. We have no public comments today. Would someone like to make a motion for the approval of the agenda? Second. Aye. All opposed? Carries. Budget presentation, superintendent.
Yes, we have our final budget presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, President Cuneo, Vice President Cottrell, Board of Education, and Dr. Keenan. My name is Jeff Hogg, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer. Purpose of this presentation, is, as Dr. Keenan said, one last budget update for FY23. That's based on the 4 goals that we talked about in the on your screen there. Next slide, please. Zero-based budgeting is the theory that we use to build the budget this year, with a focus on all of our partner districts, our districts that receive disproportionality money, and then our districts that are deemed high needs. Slide, please. Special School District has a projected revenue of $489,375,434 for next year. The column in the right has been updated to show full transportation funding from DESI for next year, as well as the increase in Medicaid funding. Next slide, please. And total expenditures for Special School District for the FY23 budget, $509,672,116. And that includes all updated requests, negotiated salary increases, and different things like that. Next slide, please. Total additional staffing is 54 at an estimated cost of $3,745,000. Reduction of staff through attrition, as we've talked about, $475,000. This includes the 4 new positions that we brought to you last time for approval as well. Next slide, please. And before we finish, I did just want to say thank you. This has been a long process from October through now, but I wanted to make sure that I thank the board, the budget committee, Dr. Keenan, cabinet, DLT, and then more importantly, our directors, our principals, and the accounting department. With them, we couldn't do that. And 2 people in particular, Steve Stevens does a lot of the revenue estimates, and the other accountant, Cynthia Vaughn, and she's our budget analyst and does all of this. Without those 2, really without Cynthia, this is not possible. To make sure that they, that they thank, that they really are by this to the budget. So, any questions?
I have a question. I know the answer to this question. Okay. This is a public hearing. Not expressly or explicitly stated. Our expenditures are just over $20 million more than our expected revenue. Where is that money coming from?
That money will be coming from the fund balance. So we're looking at roughly every $5 million is 1%. So we're looking at a 4% difference.
Okay, thank you. I know the answer to the question, but I just should say it outright. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Schools COVID mitigation plan update.
Good evening, Dr. Cuneo, Vice President Potroff, Dr. Keenan, and Board of Directors. My name is Kelly Grigsby. I'm the Executive Director for Schools and Programs, and I'm here with Kevin Ander, the Executive Director for Technical Education. We are here to talk about updates to our COVID mitigation plan. Next slide, please. Currently, our priorities, as they have been all along, is focusing on the health and safety of all of our stakeholders, students, families, and visitors, staff, creating an environment where students can learn, and also complying with state, local, and federal laws. Next slide, please. 2, you've seen this list before, it's been in all of our other PowerPoints as well. The 2 areas that we really primarily want to, actually 3 that we primarily want to focus on updating and modifying are masking. Currently, we are optional unless positivity by the building is 1.5%, or the St. Louis County community rate would be high. Also, we have been social distancing to the greatest extent possible, and contact tracing following CDC guidance. Next slide. We're proposing on June 1st of 2022 that we move to a mask optional. We remove the 1.5 building positivity rate and go only with St. Louis County or CDC rate. So St. Louis County, if they moved into a red state of community transmission, then we would be mask required. If they were not, then we would remain mask optional. This, we feel like, addresses the impact of the fact that we have small populations within some buildings, larger populations in others, so 1 or 2 cases can cause us to go 1.5, even though we're in a large space. We're also looking at ending contact tracing and quarantine, so we would still remain collecting information on positive cases, but move away from contact tracing and quarantine. And then in classrooms and on buses, relaxing social distancing. So still social distancing to the greatest extent possible, but taking that language out. Next slide, please.
All right, and so for this evening, we are submitting for approval at this meeting and the updated plan. Just so you know, this whole plan is tied back to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. It's the reason why right now we have a standalone plan. At any time that we make revisions, and the revised plan has to be taken back to the Board of Education for your approval. The revision process per the American Rescue Plan, so we do have to revise it every 6 months. So this would count as our next 6-month revision. That includes soliciting feedback from stakeholders. We met with our union representatives along the way to get their feedback on these changes, and they recognize kind of the logic behind the movements that we're making. We have to evaluate the data and then continue to respond to any changes in laws or regulation. Next slide. So when we think about this longer term of having a standalone plan that's governing a lot of pieces with COVID, we also have a number of temporary board policies that are out there covering COVID. There's an ever-changing amount of new state laws and court rulings around this topic that we're continuing to try to wrap our policies around. And then we have at the building level, building plans and procedures and how is it we handle the day-to-day instruction that's happening, recognizing kind of the new normal that we're in. The plan is to then take all of those individual standalone pieces and whittle it down to really focusing on 2 documents. So everything that's existing currently over the next 6 months is going to move into either permanent board policies. For example, on our temporary COVID policies, we have a temporary COVID leave for quarantine. We have a temporary COVID leave for illness. We also have vaccination leave. The vaccination leave, we're looking to move that into the district's short-term leave policy and just leave that on the books permanently. And then when you look at the other pieces, moving that into policy EBV, which is our infectious disease policy that we have for the district. And so putting the pieces of it that are relevant that we want to hold on to in perpetuity into those existing board policies, as opposed to having these temporary policies that keep sunsetting and we have to keep renewing or adjusting, moving into those existing established policies we have on the books. And then also pulling anything that's applicable at the school level into our individual school handbooks. So we're doing handbook review right now, and it's picking out those pieces that are things that really should live in the handbook as a school practice, and those pieces that should live in board policy. So that's the long-term plan with this piece. The American Rescue Plan is going to dictate when we can end the individual standalone policy and enact this process of moving towards permanent board policies and focusing on school handbooks. Fine. Any questions?
Go right.
Okay, I had one quick question about, and contact tracing. Does that mean then when a student actually has COVID, you won't tell the other parents in the classroom? Or not the other parents of students in the classroom?
Yes, that's correct. So we'd be following what our other partner districts, many of them have already adopted that process of, if there's a positive case in the classroom, we wouldn't be doing the backwards contact tracing process. As we met with our union representatives and kind of talked about it, it was really a lot of it's an inexact science. I mean, we're trying to remember what happened 72 hours ago when that student was in the classroom, oftentimes. And so in some cases, we're having students who are quarantining that might not need to quarantine, that we're being overly conservative, or the other end, we're missing students, and it's not a perfect process. And recognizing where we are with the community transmission levels and the hospitalization levels in St. Louis County, we wanted to move away from that process. We still leave the door open that if we reach that level of high community transmission, the superintendent can temporarily authorize us to return to contact tracing and quarantining if we're in one of those high levels. But as long as we're in medium or low, not having those pieces in place.
Kevin, I have a question, just to make sure. It's my understanding the board approved this plan. It has been elected. Both the responsibility and the right to set up and enforce this plan. Correct?
That's correct. That's the understanding of state law in Missouri.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I know you started before. We have talked with our attorneys on this. During superintendent, by the Attorney General. We are well within our rights, so.
The board has the right to decide on this.
Thank you. I just want to make sure everyone, and to let people know that our superintendent has checked.
That's why everything in the presentation, and I just said proposed, because Dr. Grigsby and I do not have the power to enact this plan. That rests solely with the board.
I'd like to request if you do produce a state of how this will just to get some just here.
Absolutely, we can do that.
I know you mentioned that you spoke with the, but in checking with our orders, do you have feedback from teachers and students and their families?
And so we've been receiving individual feedback as we've been working through this process. And in some of our buildings, our families with the contact tracing and quarantining process, they're getting pretty exhausted with that process. We've had some students who have missed a significant amount of school this school year as a result of the quarantining process, and recognizing that it isn't an exact science, we're trying to work backwards in time and figure out who was a close contact to whom. Our families really want those students back in school, is what we're seeing. With vaccination being available, with mask optional being an option, so students can wear a mask if they choose. So our families have, in general, the feedback we received has been pretty comfortable with us taking this step. Knowing that we're going to continue to evaluate the data, and if things change, we'll revise it.
That's also one of the reasons why we're keeping the dashboard in place, so people can make decisions about whether or not they want to. I think that's great. I just want to make sure our community knows.
Other questions? Approval of consensual items, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consensual items? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Action items. Following items were approved during the executive meeting on May 10th. Employment, resignations, retirement, salary adjustment, employment of BSY, summer program staff, summer of 2022. On April 26th, the following items were approved. Employment, resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, extra duty pay. 2, reemployment of less than 12-month administrative and professional staff for the 2022-2023 school year. Reemployment of support staff, employment of ESY staff in summer program, contract release requests for teacher level staff, and 1 settlement authority. Board of Education business. Someone like to make a motion for a closed meeting of the Board of Education on May 24th, 2022, and June 14th, 2022, at 7 p.m. or immediately following the business/work study meeting. Thank you. May I have a roll call on this?
Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Byers?
Yes.
Director Faulkner?
Yes.
Director Mueller?
Yes.
Director Hudson? Yes. Vice President Petrov?
Yes.
And President Cuneo?
Yes. All right. Someone like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes for our last meeting.
Something.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Chance to review the board regulations. No specific action, executive meeting action. Time. Any board communications?
Congratulations to all the graduates out there. I know the past couple years was hard, and this was a well-earned graduation year. So congratulations to all the graduates.
I would recommend that everybody take a look at the calendar of events. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn. In favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Take 5 minutes.